We're ready to start. Again, thank you everybody from coming. And I just want to say we really appreciate you all, participating in the crowd fund. Everybody here at the $1,000 level or above. So, we just really appreciate your faith in us. We're really excited for the future. I hope a lot of you have been happy with the new Trade Alerts launch. And we got a lot of other exciting stuff coming. For those that don't know, I'm obviously live streaming a lot. I hope a lot of you get to make it. If you don't, I hope you give it a try because it's a little different than the app. We teach some different lessons there. It's kind of more on the, fundamental analysis side, a lot more topical, but obviously we're teaching people how to use the signals. We do those Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm George Kailas, CEO of Prospero.ai. For those that don't know my background, I've been doing this for a long time. I started at my first value fund when I was 17 years old. I actually taught myself accounting to get that job. And, I had very similar goals then and now, which is that I was hoping to create more fair structures in the financial industry. I learned a lot kind of on the buy side of hedge funds in my early career, taught me a lot of what we ultimately can display in Prospero now. I've been at this for over 6 years now on Prospero specifically. Obviously, a lot of the algorithms that have gone into this, some of them are as old as 10 to 12 years. I believe Adam is here, Adam Plante, a rare public appearance by him. But he's been with me from, pretty much the start. And he did, both the front end and the back end. So you probably haven't interacted with anything in Prospero that Adam doesn't have his hands on. So I'm going to let him, kind of introduce himself before we go through the rest of the agenda. Are you here, Adam?
Hello. Let me turn my video on there. Hello. Yeah, so I started working on Prospero about 6 years ago and started working on getting our models distributed and trained up, and from that to all the way down to the mobile app. I've been software engineer / architect for the last 20 years, and looking forward to building more features. That's about it, unless if I talk anymore, we're going to get perilously close to technobabble. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Adam. So yeah, we're just going to kind of go through what we shared was in no particular order, partially because we have our own thoughts on the order we'd like to build these features, and we didn't want to make that too obvious. So it might seem kind of random, but I'm just going to go through them as they're listed in the Google form. I hope everybody got it. Stephen, I think you're here if you want to just repost it in the chat here so people can see. But basically the goal with the form is for everyone to vote. You can vote now, but obviously I'm going to tell you about all these, so you might want to wait. And then if there's other features, I would actually suggest writing them now, especially if you don't want to do the Q&A. I will try to get to anything suggested, at least discuss it. That's one of the reasons Adam's here. One of the things he always says is until he has a lot more detail, he's not going to tell you exactly how hard it is to build, but he's kind of here to comment on what it would take to build it. I doubt he gives you a timeline, though. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of go through these one-on-one. If you raise your hand, that would be helpful because Stephen is here. Those of you probably know Stephen as the co-host of the live stream. But if you raise your hand, I think Stephen will kind of get me a list of the order we'll go through the questions. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. So I'll just go through them one by one. The expanded help resource center, obviously we've made some improvements there. Before we released Trade Alerts, it was actually really important for us to get that video that greets people in the app, and some of the kind of expanded help screens, the help topics on our website. but there's a lot more that we can do. And I think, there's kind of two categories of how we want to improve there, if that's our priority. The one is to make sure there's a much easier way for people to get, 0 to 30 or even 30 to 60 when they get in the app. There's more of a flow. We have started to send like an email drip campaign, hopefully you've seen that and like it to help people a little bit. But like where that video started, we would really like a much better, journey, probably something with tool tips that, when people get into the app, or even if you want to test it out and reinstall it, that's how we would target that. But then also, we kind of have in our newsletter that, videos and, you can read these short videos, but, we'd want something a lot more organized as well, where it was very obvious for someone to be able to walk through, a lot of the strategies we teach in the newsletter, tactical things, maybe things for different markets, that we can, basically, have a much, not only more content, but easier content to navigate than we currently have, where we just kind of throw that, doc out there. So that's the first one. The portfolio analysis tools, is something we've talked about for a long time. Actually, you'll see as we go through some of these other ones, we actually have designs for some of the other ones, because we were, I would say, more serious about making them the next thing that we did. Prospero Plus, when we talk about it, we were actually going to build that. We were moving towards building that before we realized that, listen to a lot of our users who always, kind of made it very clear that they wanted two things. They wanted, clarity. That's why we send once a day. And then just way more obvious, action in terms of, where our priorities are versus, something like the investing letter, which is going to be a little bit more portfolio management, holistic, and you don't necessarily know in any given moment what our favorite stock is. So this was to solve, both of those problems. And, while we're on the subject, we did get this as a question and we answered it on live stream. I might as well tell it to people that ask, like, maybe what's the difference between the trading letter and the investing letter and the alerts, right? Those are three different strategies. And Brent is actually here. If anybody has any questions on the new trading letter, he's the person that's now handling that. So I'm very grateful that he's taken that off my plate. Thanks, Brent. But if you're thinking about the difference between the investing letter and the alerts, the investing letter is always my best attempt to see this is how you would manage and allocate a complete portfolio in the given market conditions, right? That's what it's there for. And some of the adjustments I make when people, sometimes it's a little too frequent for some people, but that is me saying, I don't want to be in a stock like, AMD anymore because I see too much risk in chips. I'd rather be in this other kind of short, right? So it might seem frequent on certain days, but that's just because I see a lot of change in my thinking on those days. Trade alerts are much more simple. I'm not looking at the various trade alerts as a portfolio. I'm just saying today, this is my best idea. And obviously the difference between my and the signals that I traditionally look at, and looking at, the alert, which we obviously share some generative AI outputs that I'm looking for confluence between those things. That's the difference in that. So, I explain that because before we get into kind of portfolio analysis tools, that is kind of a mix of these two products that we have right now, where there's going to be some of those same, broad analyses, checking for confluence and, our generative AI systems, or, the signals, various signals that, we'll show some of our newer ones as we go through that. And then, kind of similar things to your watch list, where we might be able to say, okay, this is what your current portfolio watch list looks like. This is in real time how we might adjust it based on certain market conditions, or you could even ask, this is a mock portfolio I'm considering. You might get some risk analysis based on an aggregation of the signals or anything like that. Next, enhancements to charting. When we think about that, there's a lot of people that have asked about longer timelines, on, our signals, also, other signals, technical factors, things like that, that you can start to look at, expanded chart view. What I've explained to some people when they ask me that is, one of our biggest concerns is it's very important to us that you, the Prospero users, get first access to these signals, and no one is, front running your trades, as they say, which was one of the big problems with Robinhood, because when you put in an order with Robinhood, hedge funds can jump in front of you and get a better price, while you have to wait until after them. Similarly, it could happen with the Prospero signals if we expose too much of the historical and the live. People could build models off the Prospero signals, hedge funds could. And then, before you knew it, before you got access to the Prospero signals, funds could actually trade into them. So, one of the things that we would have to look at as part of that is enhancing our, security procedures within the app to be more defensive against that kind of thing. So that's one thing that I will give you when I can. Like, some of these things you might want to just ask about level of effort or whatever, but for that one is actually probably more of an effort than you might think, because of those security features. All right, so the generative AI, that I mentioned, that's really just an easier way to search through things. So basically, you might be able to say, like, I want to see all the accelerated computing companies that have above 80 upside. Or you might say, below 20 net option sentiment and below 50 upside if you were looking for a short opportunity in this market. And the way that we would roll that out, and we've talked about, it's not precise, but just to give people an idea, we would probably, because, we want to make sure we understand the token expense associated, because, the biggest thing with that is, we don't want to release that to everybody and then find out that the bill to run it is very expensive, because a lot of people are using it a lot. So we would roll that out on a paid Discord, where people in that paid Discord could just have access to it and be able to ask those kind of questions and be able to, explore the signals in that sense. The goal would be from there to basically figure out how to do, something freemium in the app once we understood the cost well. Like, you get a certain amount of, similar to, ChatGPT, you get a certain amount of tokens before you had to, start paying. So that's how we would look at that feature. Moving right along, Prospero Plus. I mentioned a few of these we have designs for. So I am going to share what Prospero Plus looks like. So the core of Prospero Plus is not only do we have, some people look at the trading letter or the alerts are a little familiar with momentum score. That is a combination of, weight heavily net option sentiment, upside, below that, and then technical flow and social sentiment, that are looking at actually the moving averages of those signals. Then we have this smart analyst score that we've actually been working on for a while as well. We really like. So traditionally, when we do analyst ratings, for those that don't know, analyst ratings are major factors in upside and downside. There's, three major components. There's the similar options metrics that are in net option sentiment, except upside is looking mainly at long-term call demand. Downside is looking at mainly long-term put demand. Then you have, the analyst variables as part of those, and they're looking at different ones. For example, just something that, that tells you a little bit about the different flavor. Downside actually looks at things like upgrades, downgrades a lot more heavily than upside. Upside is looking much more at factors like, average price target, difference between where the stock is trading now. So there's a lot of different things to that, but Smart Analyst Score is actually, we created a system to grade analysts based on how well their, buy ratings, their analyst estimates have worked in the last 6 months. So that's really cool, because when we put forth a price target, when we layer in, say, instead of doing, an average price target, just a straight average for upside, we could also layer in those smart price targets, those smart analyst ratings, as part of that. Then the other nice thing you get here, is a bull bear score. We've talked about this for a while. I think some people, it's kind of what we did with momentum score to just roll something up, to one number. But we really like, kind of like that for more of a long-term view. And you can kind of see, like right now you get the signals, and then you could get the bull bear score over time as well. There just kind of be an extra tab there. So that's everything that makes up Prospero Plus. Full disclosure, that will be a $10 a month product. That's about where we're pricing it. So if you vote for that, know that you're voting for a paid product. Oh, one of the things that didn't make this on, Stephen, I see now, is custom screeners. So can you add that to the form? Because I do want people to be able to vote on that. I thought we had that in there. So I've told you a lot about smart price targets, right? So smart price targets, this one would be not for Prospero Plus. This would be broken out, but this would basically be an improvement to upside and downside, around smart price targets, where, we would kind of take it back. We would kind of reinvent those signals a bit. We'd go back to the back testing. We'd try these new variables. There's actually some other factors, that we consider adding to those variables, if we did that. But we talked about that a lot. So I'm just going to actually skip straight to Prospero web app. So this is, let me see where I want to go here. I want to find, this is what I'm looking for. So this, you see kind of that bull bear score again, but there's a lot more charting in this, like easier access to making watch lists. The learning section is kind of more embedded, expanded articles as part of the web app. Again, for full disclosure, what we would do with this is it would be free, but there would be ads, unless somebody wanted to pay.
This is
and then
the summit on the thing that we have the $1,000 investment on.
Oh, yeah.
And they're looking to really expand it and grow and looking for different ideas and things like that.
Actually, there was a
we'll just go back and appreciate the description. Okay. So I think everybody, like, the main thing about this, I could spend a bunch of time going through the individual designs. Like, a lot of it is just presenting the information differently, kind of adding that bull bear score that we would add in Prospero Plus. But, better help, better charting, integrated articles, and kind of like smart articles as well, based on, what people were clicking on. We have to, we do want to add this. The other thing is custom screeners. That one is like kind of funny, because that, we do get that one a lot, requests for that a lot. And custom screeners are just, where I make the screener and I put in the particular variables, you would just be able to, pick your signals. We actually right now are looking at adding, either market cap or sector filters to our screener. So that would be part of that improvement that we're looking on. Adam has been very hard at work. Before, we just couldn't allow custom screeners because of the way that our database was set up, but he's actually been working on improvements, so we could not only roll that out, but some of the other features that are potentially on this roadmap, that we really needed some better infrastructure for. So yes. That's about, I came in for a good landing on the time allocation there. That is what we allocated for the presentation. So we'll move to Q&A. Hey, I don't know if you got anyone in particular, Stephen, but if someone just wants to throw their hand up, we'll go to you. Oh, we got one. John, you can just you can just John, go for it. I think you can unmute yourself, turn on video. There you go.
Yep.
A
Sounds
frequent
good.
guest on our live stream.
Yep, thanks, guys. Can you hear me? I'm frozen, it looks
Yes.
like. Oh, okay, cool. So George, I kind of so number one, I had custom screening as a question, so I'm glad you added that in. Because for me, that would be important. And then I did my own sort of priority in terms of the bullet points you had. And I think the expanded help is sort of like table stakes, like you have to do that, right? Whatever it is, whether it's make it more interactive or integrated into the product, into the app. But I thought Prospero Plus should be like priority number 2, because the reason I thought that was, if it's going to generate revenue, is that going to help to then feed back in like a flywheel effect to then help create other or develop other priorities in terms of the product?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I would love to say that the help sections were table stakes, but we still are pretty we're trying to make that crowd fund last as long as possible in the burn. And that is just more of a question of the financial resources to do that well. Otherwise we'd love to do that. But I think to your point, something like Prospero Plus, we are going to roll out paid alerts next month. So I think that would make us much more comfortable with the spend on help. We've priced it out for the videos and what we do, and maybe some of the dev work that we would need to build it out. And it's probably like a $25,000 thing. And for now, our priority is making sure all of our resources are going to the most popular product builds. But I would agree with you that as soon as it's feasible to do everything, that we'd like to. All right, Nick, I see you there. I'll go to you next, Mario.
Were you showing the Prospero desktop app earlier, like the demo of that earlier, or was that only just the smart price targets? I
No,
don't know if you covered that.
we went through both Prospero Plus and Prospero Desktop. We showed two different things.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, that's it. I got a little confused. I think there was we had that open mic earlier.
Yeah,
Confused
it's
at
the
what we're
same,
thinking about.
it's the same designer. So a lot of it is going to be a very similar vibe, but yeah, some different features. Mario.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. George and I have met before. I'm more of a long-term investor, and it's not so much buy and hold, but it's, I guess what I call is I'm an active investor. I'll have a premise for buying a position. Typically, I'm willing to wait several quarters because I'm waiting on something to happen. If my premise periods, I'm out of there in a heartbeat. But it seems like a lot of these features are really geared more towards people who want to trade. And I'm thinking in terms of revenue generation. I don't know that I can give you some specific suggestions, but I'll use Prospero as one tool when I'm deciding to go into a position and looking at some of the metrics here and then combining them with other services I use. I don't know if I'm trying to think what you could do that maybe could gear it a little bit more towards somebody like me. Because I mean, for one thing, I do have several $100,000 in the market, and that's the value that I want to get out of this tool. And I am, and I thank you. I have some positions that I've done very well with, but longer term, just as an aside, I was laughing when the doctor the other day was talking about ASTS, that he, went in and out. And if he had just gone in and stayed in it, he'd probably be retired today. But that's kind of more my mentality. But let me yield the mic and give me if you have any thought.
So yeah,
Towards somebody
I
who's
think,
longer term. Yeah, fine.
yeah, I think when we think about new features, obviously like alerts, it might not be as obvious, but if you notice in the alerts launch, our hold times are actually much longer than the investing letter, right? So that right there, and one of the things that I like about that is it's easier for me to have more patience when I'm getting a strong, one of the things that the generative AI really helps me with is I wish I had more time to do research, but a lot of the times I see like how promising the setup is, and it has me hold for longer. I would say like, you know, a really good example is like SNDK that's an alert right now, which is something that I was very close to dropping yesterday from the investing letter, and I didn't even think about dropping it in the alerts because I just feel like there's a very, very promising setup. So I think that that's like a difference. And then in terms of like what you're saying, like when we build, you know, so even then we were thinking about that, but I could see how that would be perceived much more as a trading product. But when we build new features, and actually like for those that don't know the history, we actually only had long-term, the original like Prospero V3 or V2, I would say, only had long-term signals. And then a lot of people that tested it said like, well, you know, what about me? Like, how do I use this during the day? I don't just want to like sit on this forever. So we started kind of, I'd say, prioritizing, like, for lack of a better, you know, for a finance term, an equal weight strategy towards the investors and traders. And, you know, Prospero Plus has that smart price target in there. And we actually think that's one of the best long-term signals because like not only like we don't love price targets, we say that all the time, right? But if we're validating a price target based on how well an analyst is performing, we're much more comfortable, and recent performance, right? We're much more comfortable putting that number out there. And we actually think that's a very useful number to put out there because, you know, one of the things that we love about Prospero is that, you know, it updates frequently. You know, we try to think about this. You get much more frequent update than say a normal price target. And you always are situated against everything else, right? So that smart price target is not only updating, you know, anytime an analyst makes a new price target like a normal one or changes the price target, it's actually updating, you know, as we're grading the analysts as they go. So that number, unlike an average price target, will probably move every day. And you'll always kind of get to know, you know, what analysts like it and how well they do. So I think that's a really, really good, that smart price target alone is a really, really good signal for long-term investors.
Now, is that pulling those targets from analysts as they're released, or where are those targets?
Yes. So the way it works is it's pulling every analyst price target. And then it is also saying in the last 6 months, how well did a buy recommendation perform? How well did this price target perform relative to the stock price, right? And then it's going to weigh the successful analysts more than the less successful analysts. And it's not only going to weigh them, analysts that that produce more price targets and are successful, like are going to get higher weight. So like an analyst that is right 70% of the time on 100, that's a lot of price targets, 30 price targets, is going to be graded above an analyst that is right 90% of the time on 2. Right? Because we want a larger sample to make sure they're not good and maybe not just like cherry picking companies that they maybe know a lot about. So yes, we stand by that number as probably like as good of a long-term number as upside in terms of our strongest ones. And those will give you very different flavors as well. You know, one obviously leaning more towards the options markets, and then one leaning more towards, you know, an intelligent view on different analyst metrics.
No, that sounds great. On your Google sheet, if I say, hey, that's the most valuable thing to me, what do I check? Prospero Plus? Well,
there's 2 options, right? Like Prospero Plus is going to get you kind of that whole suite of stuff, momentum score, bull bear score. If you want to get smart price targets in upside and downside, that we could do sooner.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 different options.
I mean, that in itself would be tremendous for somebody like me.
Yeah.
That would
but that's the difference, right? You wouldn't see a smart price target unless we did Prospero Plus, because we wouldn't have the design elements otherwise. But you could know that it was, upside was improved at a quicker pace. That's just the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie, you want to go?
Sure. I was just wondering if you thought you might expand your database to include some ETFs like silver, GDX, Saxo, some things like that. I'd like to see a broader expansion of the database inside Prospero.
If you want to send us the tickers, we can take a look. Like some work for us. Like we have some gold, we added a platinum. I guess we can do the stocks. The ETFs are a little tougher, but if you know stocks, we can likely get them in. But yeah, right, Steven, can you add expanded ETFs to the voting? And yeah, we could talk about that. We have to upgrade our system that does that because that's a really old system. But it's something that we talk about. So, thanks for the suggestion. We'll get it in the vote. And we'll see how many people want it.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we got I think our question backlog is we got Nick again. Go for it, Nick.
I was just wanted a follow-up question on adding ETFs. Since the Prospero stocks, the scores are all relative, right, compared to other similar stocks, comparative stocks. What would an ETF be compared? Like, how would you compare the vast differences in ETFs? They only compare against each other.
Yeah, so the way we do ETFs now, and one of the reasons we can't cover ETFs is like we have a rule that we have to have 80% coverage of an ETF for it to be in our system, right? So basically like metrics that are like more built on trades, like short pressure, dark pool, net option sentiment. I think those are the main ones. Social sentiment, all of those are going to be apples to apples on ETFs, right? Because it's all derivative of the trading information or the chatter or things like that. What we do for things like market similarity too is another one that we can just derive purely on the ticker. But if you're talking about like things like profitability, growth, upside, downside, because ETFs don't have like analyst ratings, for example. What we'll do, or an EPS estimate. What we'll do for those is we'll just do a weighted average of the constituents, right? But one of the reasons we can't cover every ETF is if we don't have, a really good like ETF that I wanted to get in, that I couldn't, was there's like some interesting like energy ones, like solar or nuclear, or we looked at EVs, but we didn't get anywhere close. There's like a lot of smaller cap names in there that we didn't have covered, so we couldn't get close to that. So we don't want to present an ETF where we don't have a critical mass of coverage and we don't feel like we're producing an accurate profitability estimate or something like that. So part of how we would have to do that is we would have to I think we'd have to rethink how we presented those ETFs. So we could maybe cover them, but make it clear, maybe that we couldn't generate certain metrics or things like that. So I think with our new system, it would be a little easier, but I'll talk to Adam about that. Well, especially if that's something that a lot of people want, so vote for that. That might be in our new system where we don't have to display all 10 signals. That was kind of like a change. It might actually be easier than it used to be to get those covered. So if that's what you want, make sure to vote. I feel like I'm on American Idol here. All right, John, back to you.
I had to get my mouse over to the unmute. So 2 quick hits. One, so I think it came up on some live streams, but multiple watch lists, is that sort of anywhere in the ideas?
Yeah. That might be a good Adam question. He's not going to tell you a time, but like maybe you'll get to know, how he thinks about these things.
Just FYI, I sold software for 30 years, so I know how these conversations go.
Yeah. No, that is one of those things that is it's gonna be more connected to what's on the list of priorities of things before it than it is connected to any kind of complexity involved with integrating that feature.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's much more like, where does this fall in the weighting of other features? But
Okay.
there's no we've made drastic improvements to our backend systems that we could absolutely support it. Now it's folding it into the rest of it.
Yep, got it. The other one is for George, I guess. So, George, you mentioned momentum scores, and I love the momentum scores. Is there a way to see the trending of the momentum scores, or does that kind of fall into the data scraping, screen scraping problem? Because, like, for me, it's like momentum score of 60. Well, okay, is that good or bad? Well, if it had if it was 30 and then it went to 60 versus it was 80 and went to 60, right? Those are two different scenarios.
I think that's a very good point. Throw in, Steven, throw in just adding momentum score. Like, because I don't think it would be a huge lift to just add momentum score as one of the time series graphs. And yeah, the problem with the scraping is having a long history. Like, we could look at adding like 2 weeks of it, like we do for net option sentiment and everything like that. But yeah, Steven, throw that one in. I think we're getting a lot of good ones here. That's why that's why we're doing this. Because like some of this might be low hanging fruit that a lot of you want. So yeah, especially with all these new ones, I think we'll probably take questions for another 5 minutes or so, and then make sure, I hope everybody votes. I don't, the link is in there, right? I think the link's in here. And then make sure everybody votes, and then I can kind of like talk through how I would think about interpreting the results. Any other questions? All right, then maybe the best thing. Actually, Brent, if you want to talk about like the trading letter and what you're going to do with the YouTube channel, and everything, that might be an interesting thing for people that don't yet subscribe to the trading letter, because I think there's some interesting things. I've been very happy with how the trading letter has improved since I handed it off to Brent.
Thanks. Put me on the spot. Yeah, so obviously I've been doing that now, and using the momentum score, of course, still is the main thing to get all the ideas from. But what I have done is incorporated a little bit of more AI. So Gemini helping me out a little bit with kind of trying to focus more on what else is happening as far as like sector performance to really narrow it down. And then the biggest thing I also have done is to avoid not trying to chase stocks, because sometimes we get one up at the top of the score and it looks great, but it's up, 50% that day. And, so that's kind of been the biggest thing I've done. And yeah, it seemed like the win rate's been pretty good. Unfortunately, the market's been tricky, so that's been tough. Yeah, the other thing I am doing, I mentioned to George yesterday, I'm kind of taking all that information and I started a YouTube channel myself, and sort of kind of taking the macro info for the day of what I've got in the letter and putting it into like a short form YouTube video through CapCut. So making it like about a minute long, just to sort of see what's going on. And also putting in there, that I'm getting this data from Prospero to try to, hopefully help get the word out some more. But yeah.
Great, thank you. So I think, right now we only have 6 votes. If you see the link there, I'd encourage everybody to vote, so we actually have, something good to discuss. I mean, we'll do a recap here, like if more people vote after. The other thing that I would say is that The votes are coming in. Thanks, everyone. The other thing that I would say is that if you'd like to vote after, we'll send a recap to all of this. But let's see, has anything? Prospero Plus looks to be the leader. I don't want to, I'll kind of tell after we kind of close this off, I'll tell people a little more about this. Actually, let's post this in the Discord as well. Get ourselves some more votes from our Discord channel. Actually, no, we'll do that after. We'll collect more of these after, because I want to make sure that we have it purely from, kind of our power users, the people that, kind of put the most faith in us. I think that's an important prioritization. But then, yeah, we'll put it out to a wider group just to, I'd say probably a different one, just to see. So I think we kind of have a runaway winner here. 31% say Prospero Plus, and 23% say smart price targets. And obviously, like we talked about, smart price targets are a big part of Prospero Plus. So yeah, just had another response come in for Prospero Plus, and another one for smart price targets. So yeah, I think that looks like, we'll see. We'll let things continue to pour in, but I think that's a pretty clear. In third place is Prospero Desktop. But yeah, we had another come in for smart price targets. So yeah, we're looking at combined almost 70% want one of those two things. So I think that's pretty clear data. That's a great next step. Also, thank you everyone for the love on this. We've had 60% rate this product summit a 5, and 30% rated a 4. We do have 1-1. I'm sorry the product summit wasn't everything that you hoped for. Please give us feedback. Let us know how we could do better next time. We'd love for everybody to be a 4 or a 5. That's kind of like the full agenda. Actually, let's look at like some of these write-ins and see what anybody thinks. All right, we got some ETF suggestions. Someone said they're split between Prospero Plus and Desktop. Someone talked about the help. Someone said I have not received the letters. The letters weren't there was some confusion here. Alerts were part of the crowdfund that we, even at kind of like our lowest level, they were part of the crowdfund. If you would like free trials to the letters, just email me at george@prospero.ai. I mean, generally, like for anyone that asked me that was in the crowdfund, I did give a trial to. Obviously, all of you here have really supported us. So yeah, if you haven't tried the letters, want to try the letters, just shoot me an email. I'll make sure to get you set up for I'll give you a free quarter. Okay, that's helpful for the next summit. Maybe we'll try to do these with this group. We'll shoot for maybe twice a year, maybe once a quarter if I have time. But I think that's I think that's, thank you for the feedback. I like to just make sure that I'm focusing on kind of the audience, and that that there's it, like, and that you get to see me. But I can take the feedback on the PowerPoint. More time. I mean, someone said more time for the summit. I mean, I feel like we don't have, we got time left, and I don't know, I don't know how much more content we have, but maybe we'll think about if people have ideas for what we didn't cover in the summit that maybe we could look at on the next one. Happy to hear that. To also, I'm not trying to short you on the hour, but I feel like we got through everything that we kind of wanted to here. Yeah, someone talked about the newsletters twice. We'll get you in. Don't worry. All right, so I think where we go from here is, oh, here we got another question. Can you touch on how the app is being received in the marketplace? Generally, I think, well, if you look at our like Prospero, let's get a current Prospero iOS. 4.4 on 54 reviews. I think that's pretty good. I mean, especially when you consider a stock app that like some people are just going to come and be confused or get one bad stock pick and probably want to give you a 1. And then can you also take a look at my comment, please? I wasn't reading this chat. Let me see if I can find your comment. I wasn't trying to ignore your comment. Lucien, hi. I know Lucien from my childhood. Thanks for investing. There will be opportunities to get free trials, especially for you, the investors but no, people are not going to be automatically charged. That's very against our mandate. But some people might get offered free trials, and in those terms of service, when you opt into that free trial, it will say that you'll go on auto bill. But no one that doesn't opt into a trial, like physically opt in, is gonna have that happen. I'm looking for, okay, I found your comment, Louis. Personalized alerts. Okay, it does make sense. This is a feature idea we've got before. The problem with personalized alerts is, sometimes we want to guard people against like product ideas that we don't think would be that good for the user, right? And a perfect example is net option sentiment. Like, let's say you want a net option sentiment alert on a stock if it goes above or below 80, right? People that have looked at net option sentiment, you could be getting like 10 alerts in a day on a stock as it kind of goes above and below that. So it's kind of hard. Like, we don't want to create products that are going to be spamming people. And some people might say, like, I don't mind. I'd like to see that much information on net option sentiment. But some people that don't know our product very well, that just think they're getting like an alert on our key feature, might be very annoyed if they're just getting like a bunch of net option sentiment alerts per day. We think that the custom screener is probably like a good way to tackle that. But yeah, like, if you think personalized alerts, even after I said that, is something that people would be pretty interested in, write it in, but also help me out a little bit and write it in terms of like what you'd like those numbers to look like, right? Is it an alert at a certain level? Is it maybe a price difference and alert difference combination or something like that? Because as you start to get in the combinations, it becomes a little easier that we're confident that they're not firing too much. But the other side to that is we might be adding too much complexity for people that are new to it, which we always want to guard against as well. But yes, this is definitely something that we've gotten before. But yes, please help us out. Let us know how you would like it to look at, and we'll add our thoughts on that to the follow-up, because I want to make sure that we didn't ignore your question. I wasn't reading this chat well enough. I apologize. On the social sentiment. So thanks for the question, Tim. It's a great question. One of the things that we think makes our app special, and we try to do from the beginning, is that we try to make sure that we are explaining concepts in numbers, right? So that's all to say, like, when we give you a social sentiment, it's just a social sentiment, right? Unusual options activity would be addressed in that option sentiment, but it's addressed in our way, right? And actually, that's a really good question in terms of how we think of things like net option sentiment. Its goal is to, I'd say, especially understand what we would call robotic trade signatures in the market and understand through those short-term option sentiment robotic signatures, where algorithms might be placing big bets because we think those are high conviction bets, especially when I explain this. Like we actually, grade down things like option sweep orders, right? Because in our view, an option sweep order is an institution, basically getting bad pricing, buying the ask up on a huge block order. And we think the only reason they do that is they actually expect retail to follow on, or they expect other algorithms to follow that on. So we don't view them as a knowledge alpha play. We actually view that as a momentum alpha play, where they're just trying to cause momentum through that, like bad pricing. What we instead prioritize and how we look for things is methodical movements across many different strikes, across many different expirations. Because if you had, if you're an institution and then you think you have real alpha in something, that's how you're going to trade it. You're not going to buy a bunch that sends out an alert and pushes up the price of a single contract. You're going to try to spread it out across a lot of different contracts, so you're not going to alert those kind of filters. But you can always think about all of the signals as we're trying to isolate a concept, because we feel if we isolate that concept well, you, the human, can make better decisions because you can weigh the combination of dark pool, social sentiment, net option sentiment, right? And you could start to pattern match about how those signals look in relation to a QQQ, net option sentiment for a stock that you follow often. Like, we think that's what kind of makes our app special, the interpretability of it. And we think we get that interpretability through those explained concepts. John?
So just a comment. So number one, thank you for all you guys do. It's been a great ride. I've learned a lot. And it was really fun to have Matt on the live stream. But next time he's on, you got to let him borrow one of your shirts.
I'm sure he would love that. Actually, and he's always bothering me to come on, but I let him on my system because Matt has a bit of a problem with his setup. He's always trying to be on in a car or on the on a phone. So I'll give him a good talking to about his setup, and then I'd love to have him on. But for new people that don't watch the stream, I would hate for them. I would hate for them to see this guy in a car on the phone. It's not the professional setup that I've come to love, and I've dragged my camera setup. I've now moved twice, and it's huge, and it takes up space. I was in a 1-bedroom for a while where my office was in the bedroom, and my ex-girlfriend hated that camera more than anything else in the world, but I kept it for all of you. Yeah, Mario.
Yeah, George, just a real quick question. I love that feature of compiling analyst numbers and their accuracy. I use Fidelity, and I'll get blurbs on individual stocks about if an analyst has changed some of their pricing. And what amazes me is probably 20% of the time it says, Bear Stearns has changed their numbers to X, and it's actually below the current price. And so are you guys going to try to filter that out somehow? Because it'll distort the numbers. Yeah, that's it.
Well, as worthless as those can seem, right? They're all factoring into that average price target, right? So for us, where the number is doesn't matter as much as the accuracy of the analyst, right? And obviously, if their numbers are bad, I think the funniest thing is that I believe there's still 3 analysts that have a Tesla price target below 50, right? And that's obviously not helping their accuracy, right? But if those analysts are just have an axe to grind with Elon Musk, but they're really accurate in everything else, right? We're looking at them in the aggregate. That's clearly going to drag down their numbers. But yeah, we just care about how accurate they are overall. And then that just determines the weight in like the smart price target. So yeah, that's a better system because yes, like I think that's a big problem with just a normal average price target, right? Because when you look at the price target for Tesla, it's being dragged down by those like, analysts with an axe to grind. But I mean, it's the same thing. Like there's people like, I think there's one person, I haven't checked recently, that has like a 900, or I think Kathy Wood's like 1,000 price target on Tesla, right? So, some of those polarizing names, it does average out a bit, but all that matters to us in that number is how it goes in the aggregate, how accurate they are and how accurate they are recently, because that's really important. We don't need to factor in, someone that's heyday was 5 years ago, right? And they're still producing a bunch of things. If you're not right today, you're not going to get much of a weight in our smart price target. All right, I want to make sure everybody's happy, so I am going to keep answering questions as long as they're here. I mean, at least for another half hour, because my days are long with the markets. But if there's more questions, I'll keep going for a bit. I want that person that wants us to go for longer than an hour. If you're the 1-star person, let's try to make you happy. But if there's nothing, we'll wrap. All right. We'll see if a question comes in. I'll do some parting thoughts, but Adam, any parting thoughts before I go?
No, just that the voting is going to be very helpful for us as we put our timeline down for the next couple quarters, and where I can focus my efforts for development. So I really appreciate the voting. It goes a long way.
Yes, and just I want to express my gratitude to all of you again, like getting above like $500,000 in a crowd fund, over 500 investors. It was a great vote of confidence in what we're doing, and we really, really appreciate that faith in us, and we're working hard to make sure that we're getting better every day, producing better products. It looks like I'm not gonna give our final decision, but things are looking good for Prospero Plus being next. All of you will be able to get free trials when we roll that out as well. And also just for those of you that don't know, if you ever want to learn more about Prospero or how to integrate in your process more, like people that email me that haven't invested any money, I'll normally do like a one-on-one Zoom session, anything like that. So if you want to learn more about how to use Prospero, like I'll get to know your strategy a little more, and kind of figure out how to build more of a growth plan for you in terms of how to use it, maybe what the next steps are in terms of becoming a better investor, a better trader, anything like that. You can always email me, George@Prospero.ai. I'll make sure to set that up with you. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks again for investing. And we'll try to do at least one more of these this year. Have a great weekend, everybody.